Hello and welcome to the SBL Guru podcast. My name is Marty Windle. What we're going to do in season one of this podcast is to look at real life companies and real life organizations and try to apply some of the theories and ideas of the SBL syllabus into these organizations. Now, the idea of doing this is to improve your commercial awareness and to help you generate examples and ideas in the exam. The examiner said you can use real life examples if they're relevant. So the idea is we're going to take elements of the syllabus, apply them in real life companies to simulate what you will be doing in the case study. So today we're going to look at section A of the syllabus under leadership, and we're going to look at part of leadership which talks about the cultural web and organizational culture. Generally, when this topic is asked in the examination, students tend to perform quite poorly. So let me start off with a definition when we're talking about culture, explaining what culture is. Well, a simple definition of culture is the way we do things around here, how we do things in this organization. And if you've worked in different companies, you know that different companies have got different ways of working. They've got different types of values. And that's what culture is all about, the way we do things around here. Now, it's quite a vague term. So what we use in the exam is we use something called the cultural web. It takes the ideas of the way we do things around here and applies them in real organizations. So it breaks the culture down into different categories or different headings like structure, symbols, power, stories, and helps us to visualize the culture more clearly. So you might use it in the exam to answer exam questions which ask you to analyze the culture. You may also use it in the exam to answer questions which talk about how do we need to change the culture. We sometimes have to change the culture because we've got a new strategy or because we've got a new way of working. So you use these as headings to generate ideas in the exam. Don't forget, in the SBL exam, there's no need to explain the theory. You just use the ideas to generate answers in the examination. So let's start off with Apple. I'm sure you're very familiar with the Apple Corporation. You may be holding an Apple iPhone in your hand. For me, I don't use Apple. I use a Chinese brand called Vivo. I know it's very controversial, but the Vivo camera is way, way better than the Apple camera. Take a picture with Apple, take a picture with Vivo, and the Vivo one is far superior. But anyway, let's today talk about Apple Corporation, and we're going to talk about the culture web. So the first part of Apple I'm going to talk about is stories. Stories at Apple. Now, what are stories? How do they relate to culture? Stories are told from person to person. They're told to emphasize heroes in the organization, things that people have done. And this gives an example of good behavior, which is expected in the organization. This is what the hero did. You should behave like the hero. Now, in Apple, they talk about Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs founding of Apple in a garage and trying to think differently, trying to break the status quo of the IT industry. They always focused on innovation, change, and that startup culture. And what they want to do is share that story so people in Apple try to follow those ideas, behave like a startup, be creative, break things, do things differently. And that's what the culture tries to do. So the stories tell you this is the hero, this is what they did, follow what the hero did. Be like Steve Jobs, be like Steve Wozniak. Look at what they did and try to follow the idea of creativity and breaking the rules in your day-to-day job. The second category is rituals and routines. Now, rituals and routines are things that happen on a regular basis and they emphasize important values in the organization. Now, at Apple, they have a regular product launch in September each year, the iPhone event when they launch the latest iPhone product. It's one of the most highly anticipated events in the tech calendar, and people get very excited because there's a massive amount of secrecy about what the new product will be. Now, when they launch that new product, They pay attention not just to the design, the meticulous design in the product, but they also focus on the packaging of the product. So it sends a clear message to the employees. You must have that attention to detail. You must be creative, but also don't forget that design is a very important part of our business. And that even applies to the packaging. This is the way we do things around here. We must strive for perfection and excellence. So that's the message they're sending with the regular product launches that they have at Apple. Next part in the culture web is something called symbols. Now, you may have seen the Apple logo and not really thought about it, but when you look at the Apple logo, it's obviously an apple, but there's a bite taken out of the apple. This tells us something about the culture. It goes back to the biblical story of Adam and Eve and biting the forbidden fruit, which led to newfound knowledge. This tells you about the culture at Apple. We want to try new things. We want to be innovative. We want to be creative in terms of our technology, but also creative in terms of the retail experience. We're biting the forbidden fruit. We're doing things differently to other people. We're not following the rules. We're creating our own rules. And we see that in the design of the retail stores. That's also a symbol of the organization. It's cool. They provide a unique customer experience, but they also provide that design simplicity. So it's also telling you this runs throughout the entire organization. These symbols like the store tells you about the culture of Apple. Good design, good customer service. It's important. It sets the tone for employees working on new products and changes the way they think into the Apple way of thinking. This is the way we do things around here. Next part of the culture web is power structures. Who has the power in the organization? Who has the power in the business? Now, I'm sure you're very aware of Steve Jobs. He's got the power to shape the direction and culture of the Apple organization. He was devoted to innovation, but also product excellence, and put a lot of pressure on the people he was working for in the organization to make the product better and better. So that's going to influence the culture of the organization. But even the new leaders, the new people in power, Tim Cook, now placing a slightly different emphasis, still has the design and innovation, but also emphasizing sustainability and ethical practices and making sure that they look after customers' data. So this also creates a slightly different influence. New power creates new values in the organization. So the people in power have a strong influence on the culture. Next one is control systems. What is controlled in the organization is what is seen as important in the culture. Now at Apple, strong emphasis on secrecy. They don't want anything to leak. Any of their innovations are kept secret, but they've also got a strong emphasis on quality control in the organization. That's seen as important in the organization. So what is controlled is what is seen as important in the business, and that is a core value of the organization. They want to make sure they've got a strong commitment to user privacy and user security, and that is now part of the day-to-day considerations of Apple staff. So what is controlled is what is important in the culture. The next part of the web is organization structure, and in Apple, they try to have a structure which focuses on specialization, but also focuses on teamwork. And the idea is you have specialist managers, but also you're focused on working as a team to solve problems. That teamwork then becomes part of the core values in the organization. So taken together, the culture web gives us the headings and the categories we might use in the examination. So if you ask to change culture in the exam, how does culture need to change? Or analyze culture, talk about what the stories are or how the stories need to change. Talk about the symbols or how they need to change. Talk about the controls in the organization and how they need to change to reflect the new values. These are ideas you can use in the exam when answering questions on organizational culture. If you need more help with the exam, just go to martywindle.com, find out about my courses, which can help you to get through your ACCA SBL exam. Thank you very much and have a great day.